In this video, we're going to talk about graphing and writing single variable inequalities. And an inequality symbol is basically it has an opening on one side and the two lines come to a point onto the other. And the way we tell what the inequality means is based on what side the sign opens. See, our typical equations have an equal sign, which means that both sides of the equations are balanced and equal in values. Inequality means they're not equal. One side has more weight than the other. And in fact, whatever is on the side of the opening, so in this case here, it's the x is on the side of the opening of the inequality. That means x is going to be bigger than what's on the pointed side, which means in this case would be 0. So the inequality x is greater than 0, graphically what you would do is notice it just says x is greater than 0, so I cannot actually equal 0. And on a number line what you do is you use an open circle at 0, and then you're going to shade in the direction of numbers that are bigger than 0. So I would shade to the right. And if I had a line up under the inequality, which I have right up here below it, this next one, which says x is greater than or equal to 2, means I would still shade towards numbers larger than 2, but I would include the 2 this time, so I would use a closed circle at 2. And similar but different, if x is less than, so if x is on the side of the point, that means it's smaller than whatever quantity is on the open side of the inequality sign. That means I'm going to shade towards values smaller than whatever this number is, so I would shade to the left. And if there's no line under the inequality sign, it's an open circle. If there is a line up under the inequality sign, that means it could also equal that number, indicating a closed circle. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look and we're going to write. Let's start off by writing the inequality from the graph. And so I got 4 examples here, and I'm looking at this first problem. And we're given a number line, and we have an open circle at 0. So I'm just going to use x and 0. So I got x, and I have 0. Now, notice how in this problem we are shaded to the left. So that's all the numbers that are smaller than 0. So that means that since x is smaller than 0, x has got to be on the pointed side of the inequality, and 0 is towards the opening. And I also have an open circle at 0, which means that I cannot include 0. So this is our inequality here. Now the one right here below it, this time we're starting at 3. All right, 3 is at the very beginning on this number line, and we're shaded to the right. So I'll start with x, and I'll start with 3. And the fact that we're shaded to the right means that x has to include all numbers larger than 3, so the inequality sign opens towards the x. The fact that we have a solid circle means that we include the 3. So I'm going to put a line up under that inequality, so x is greater than or equal to 3. Next one here, right below it, we're starting at -5. We have a solid circle, and we're shaded to the left. So x relative to -5, the fact that it includes all numbers smaller than -5 means that the inequality sign has to open towards the 5, and the x is on the pointed side, and we have to include the -5 because of the closed circle. One more of these graphing ones. Open circle at 4, shaded to the right. So I'd start with x and a 4. Since we're shading towards numbers greater than 4, the inequality sign opens towards the x. Open circle means it doesn't get the line up under it because I do not include the 4. Now let's look at graphing our inequalities. And so looking at this first example here on the top, we have n is greater than 1. Now notice that inequality sign does not have a line up under it, which means that I start at 1 and I do an open circle at 1 because I can't include it. N can only be numbers bigger than 1. And in terms of shading, I have to shade in the direction of numbers bigger than 1, which would be to the right. Now let's look at the one right there beneath it, x less than -1. Now again, the inequality sign does not have a line up under it, so it's going to be an open circle at -1. And x has to be numbers smaller than -1 because the pointed sign of the inequality is towards the x. So I got to shade towards smaller values, which would be to the left on the number line. Next one, n is greater than or equal to -6. So this time the inequality sign has a number or a line up under it, which means that we include this value of -6. So this would be a closed circle at -6. And since the inequality sign has the opening towards the n includes all numbers bigger than that -6. So I'd be shaded to the right. And last one for the graphing, we have a line up underneath the inequality sign. And we're talking about p's less than or equal to 0. So solid circle at 0. And since the pointed part of the inequality sign is towards the p has to also include numbers smaller than 0, which means that I shade to the left.